Hey, Josh here,
This is Mike.
and we are must see
before you die.
That's right. We'll get it one of these times.
We'll get it sooner or later.
So, today's video, we are doing our review of a 2007 horror movie about vampires, 30 Days of Night. I think this movie doesn't get enough coverage, Mike. It doesn't get enough love, in my opinion.
Well, we better save that to the end.
So we'll just start right out here. So the movie starts off where it kind of tells you a little bit about what's going on. It says it takes place in Barrow, Alaska, northmost town in the U.S., isolated in 80 miles of endless wilderness. Doesn't sound like anywhere that I would want to be. No way, no how. Sorry, I just don't.
Nope.
Like, my dad would love that, but me, no way. So, and it's cut off every winter for 30 days. Cut off every winter from sunlight for 30 days. So, basically, darkness for 30 days. And they do have rules in this town that goes along with that. And we'll kind of go over that a little bit.
I need to preface this because when I told Josh this, he's like, "Whoa, I didn't know that." But the version I saw, which was, I thought it was the first time I've seen this movie, and then about halfway through it, I was like, "No, I've seen this a long time ago," but I couldn't remember the ending. Mine did not have subtitles for the vampires, so the communication they were doing, I had no clue. So that probably put me at a disadvantage in the movie.
So I can't really remember a lot of things they said, Mike. I can remember a couple of different parts, and maybe I'll interject those once we get to those parts. I can't remember everything they said, of course. And Mike just said that. So why they need subtitles is because the vampires use their own language, and they actually just made it up for the movie. And it's like a bunch of clicks and like hisses and little screeches and stuff, and that's how these vampires talk and communicate
back and forth.
The director was very interested in like different tribes that were like isolated for years and years and years, and they communicated by like noises and different things like that. They didn't necessarily speak a lot. So that's what gave him the inspiration for this. But so we start with a stranger. That's the guy. That's the name of this guy. The stranger, and the guy's looking at like a big like oil rigger ship or something like that, right, Mike? Like a haul stuff. I don't know what it is, and it's out in the ocean, and it's pulled up to Alaska, and you can tell, and you see that he's got a little rowboat that he rowed in to the shore to, and he's just looking at it. And you see his face. The guy looks messed up. The guy looks like out of it, right, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, they show a ship out there, and it's stuck out in the middle of the water, and you're like, you don't know what this guy, if he survived, something that happened on the ship, and he's just coming in. I mean, you really at that point didn't have any, I kind of got things ahead of each other by talking about vampires, but you didn't really know at the beginning of this movie what the story was.
So he starts walking, the stranger, and you're like, okay, where's he going?
He's out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, turns out he's walking to this little town called Barrow. It's in Alaska, and it says it preferences last day of sunlight. So yeah, it preferences it's the last day of sunlight. So we know that. We know it's the last day of sunlight. So a lot of the townspeople are leaving because they don't want to be stuck in this town for a month. Without any sunlight. I mean, that's kind of a miserable way to be. I mean, you're in darkness for 30 days. And, so it said, I think on the thing, like the town has like 538 people, and then it shrinks down to like 130. Like that means people leave.
Yep.
And you see like people's families are leaving. Some people stay behind. Like a guy like sends his wife out because she don't like it, and he's staying behind, and different things like that. So you see that, but then you see the two cops of the town are out looking at this pile, and you're like, what is that? I didn't know what it was at first. I was like, what is that? And they're looking at it, and what it is, it's a pile of burnt cell phones.
Yeah.
Mike. And
Very
they're like,
odd.
why would anybody, huh?
Very odd.
Yeah, they were like, why would anybody do this? Why would anybody burn these? Like, what's the point? Like, they're like, well, maybe this kid tried to steal them or something. And they're like, well, if he stole them, why would he? They ain't have no value when you burn them. So they just couldn't figure it out. The lead cop, his name is Eben, and his deputy's name is Billy. And Eben is like, man, and that's played by Josh Hartnett. And he just can't figure it out. He's puzzled. He's puzzled by this. So, yeah. So say what? Oh yeah. Like I said, I wrote here. You can tell that No Sun is hard for a lot of people because, like I said earlier, a lot of people are leaving the town, and they do change it. Billy changes the amount of people in the town on the sign, and Eben's like, "Why do you do that?" And he's like, "It's tradition." Like Eben's kind of like, you can tell Eben is a little like disconnected a little bit. Don't you can't tell that, Mike? You don't know why yet, but you do.
Yeah, you can tell he's kind of scattered a little bit. I thought one cool scene right there though was they ride out and look at the sun going down, and it may be after this point, but yeah, and they're talking about this is the first place I brought my wife on our first date, and the Eben guy goes, yeah, everybody in town, this is the first place they take their date.
Right. Well, at first he said it. He goes, everybody does that. Everybody's done that. And he goes, huh? And he goes, not with your wife.
Not with your wife.
Yeah, it was funny. So I thought that was funny. I mean, there isn't a lot of there's not a lot of comedy in this movie at all, but that was one of the, a moment of levity.
Yeah, it's like dry humor. There's a couple scenes like that, but not a whole lot.
Yeah. So you meet this other character next. Her name is Stella, and she is with a fire marshal. She's like a fire marshal, I think it said it was. And she's in town doing stuff, and you figure out that Eben and Stella were married, but they're estranged and separated right now, and it's headed towards divorce. That's what you get. So because someone said, "Oh, are you going to talk to Eben?" and she's like, "No, like I'm just in town for a little bit, and I'm getting out of here. Like I'm not going to be here I'm not staying here in the dark." So she wants to get out of town, and she's trying her hardest to do that. And also next is a scene where you don't see who it is, but you see a knife, and somebody is just straight stabbing these sled dogs.
Yeah.
Murdering them. Yeah. And
it's about lost my wife on that scene because she's like, "Oh no, I can't watch that." And
well, they don't show any.
They don't show it, but they show them after the fact, and there's blood and
right. Yeah. Well, they show the dog like sound like it's getting hurt, and you see the blood and stuff. But it is it is definitely a powerful, a little powerful scene because no one likes dogs dying, and this person literally just took a friggin' Rambo knife out and just stabbed them while they're chained up to their doghouse. So Stella's trying to get out of this town, and all of a sudden she's driving, and these roads are just snow, man. Aren't they snow? Like just everywhere.
It's pouring it down. Yeah, it's
and all of a sudden this guy runs into her, man, like hardcore, Mike, doesn't he? With it, they call this thing the trencher, and it's got this huge, like almost looks like a saw blade on the front of it.
Yeah.
But it's like huge. It's to make trenches, of course. But he runs into her. I mean, she better be lucky she didn't get seriously injured. That was a hardcore crash scene. So she goes into the ditch, and the guy comes over and checks on her. And she's like, "I need a ride to the airport. I got to get there. I'm not staying here." And, and the guy's like, "Well, have you called Eben?" And she's like, "Ugh, God." So she calls Eben, and does he not answer, Mike?
I think he does. Maybe he answers the second time, maybe not initially, but he does answer. And then she's like asking him for help or something. He basically says, you know, you didn't want to talk to me any other time. I've wanted to talk to you about our, you know, our
Right.
situation. So he ends up sending his friend to go get her.
Billy. But he
Yep.
sent his deputy Billy. Yeah, you're right, because he's pissed
Yep.
because it seems like he's tried to talk and try to figure out their relationship, and
She
she
didn't
said
want
the
to
hell
know.
with it.
Yep.
She said the hell with it. Like, basically to her, it's too far gone, in her opinion. And that's what I got from it. So, oh, he gets a call about the dogs being slaughtered. So Eben is going over to check on that. Yeah, Billy gets Stella, and you kind of get the impression that Billy is basically just
He's taking his time so she doesn't get to make, because he actually earlier in the movie was, you know, trying to talk to his friend about talking to her, and he's like, yeah, I ain't talking to her. She had a chance to call me. So he didn't, you know, he was hoping they would get back together too, him and his wife. Billy and his wife were hoping they'd get back together.
And he's not rushing there, right? Yeah, he's not. I wrote that. I said, Billy don't care if they make it to the airport on time at all. And then they get to the airport too late, and they're closed up, and she's like, oh, I'm stuck here for 30 days. Like, you can tell it's like the worst thing to her. Like, she's had to do it a lot, it seems like, and she knows what it's like, and it's not, you know, it's not fun. So then it cuts to Billy. I think not Billy. Eben is at the. I don't know if did he check on the dogs? Is this when he checked on the dogs? And he was like, "Oh, we don't know." The guy, the wife and the husband that took care of the dogs. At this point, they're like super upset. Like, who would do this? Who would this? I mean, the guy's like really depressed, and they're like, "We're gonna get them." And he's like, "Well, there ain't that many." He's like, "Have you seen anybody that you don't recognize?" And the guy's like, "No, like we haven't seen anybody, you know." Because like in a town like that, you know everybody.
Yeah, I mean, there's only 150 people left too.
Right, and you know everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So then Eben ends up going to like, what is that? Like a garbage plant or a power plant or something?
Yeah, he gets another call saying something else is weird and they've never seen this before. And it looks like a waste compactor.
Okay, yeah, I didn't know what it was.
That's the same thing that killed Michael Myers, remember?
Yeah. Oh God. And so he goes there, and they have like one of those chomper things, and it basically nothing can withstand it. If it goes in there, it's done.
Mm-hmm.
And so the guy he keeps track of what goes in there, and what he pulled out was what, Mike? Do you remember what he pulled out of there? What he saved?
I can't remember exactly what it was he said, but I'll let you. I know what he was talking about.
It was helicopter parts,
right?
And like stuff to operate helicopter.
Like you saw the headset, the headsets for sitting there.
And the guy that owns the helicopter is like, "This is my only way of making money." Blah blah blah. It's our way of getting out of here quickly. You know what I mean? If we need to go somewhere to like a next town over, if somebody has a medical emergency or whatever. So this guy's ticked.
This is where you're seeing like there's little things have been happening.
Yes.
And what they're doing is it looks like their form of leaving or transportation is leaving. You got, you got the helicopters destroyed. You got the dogs were destroyed, the sled dogs. So any type of transportation.
Phones were taken out.
The cell phones were taken out. So it's kind of like something's going on. And then here shortly, I don't want to get too far ahead, but shortly the power goes out. So anything that could kind of make them be stuck there, other than their cars, has been taken away from them.
That's right. And so then we cue to another guy he's in a small building. It's got like satellite dishes up top and stuff. I don't know if it was like a little power station or for the cell phones or telephones or whatever it was. The guy's name was Gus, an older guy. He hears some noises, and all of a sudden something happens to the cell tower, and he's like, what's going on? This guy puts on a winter coat with a hood on. He can't see anything. It's dark out. He's got a flashlight. The one question I want to ask you, Mike, if you remember this part, the guy walks so far away from the building. Do you remember that? Like, why did he do that?
I don't know.
he was looking for something, but what though? Like he was like, "Who's there?" And he just kept walking. It's like, dude, like you're in Alaska. It could be a bear, a wolf. It could be anything. So, and the guy didn't have any kind of like no gun, no knife, no nothing, just a big flashlight. So all of a sudden he was like, "Who's there?" And these things just start to like go around him and move real fast, Mike. And I think this is a very effective scene. You don't get to see it, and then finally you get to see a vampire for the first time. Jumps on top of Gus, rips his throat right out. I mean, he stood no chance. And then as the camera's kind of like panning away, you notice it's not just one. There's like several there with him. There's a bunch. So Gus is dead. That's our first death of the movie, not including the dogs. So the next is they cue to a diner. So there's a diner in this town, and a lot of people are eating there. And the stranger is at the diner, and he was like, "I want raw hamburger." Didn't he talk like that, Mike?
He did. He did.
He's like, "I want raw hamburger."
He wanted alcohol and a raw hamburger or something.
Right, and she's like, "We don't allow alcohol during this 30-day stretch. It's hard enough with no sunlight. Alcohol has a 30-day ban, so that's one of their rules." And she's like, "If you want ground beef, you're only going to get it one way or two ways: frozen or well done." That's what she said. And the guy's like, "Well, I want this." And he's like, "You won't give me my drink. You won't give me my hamburger." And
damn, Josh, you sound just like him.
And so he like grabs this lady up, Mike, don't he?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, like Eben comes in and starts talking to him. Is like, "Nope, let's go downtown." So that Eben's thinking this guy's behind this stuff going on.
Yeah, he says, "Let's go outside and let's talk about it." The guy don't want to go outside.
Right. And then all of a sudden he's saying something, and all of a sudden there's a gun at the back of the stranger's head. And it's Stella. Stella's back in town. Eben's estranged wife. And he's like, says something. And so they end up taking this guy. They both do. To the jail. Right, Mike?
Yep.
Isn't that what happens next?
Yep.
Yeah. And I said, it looks like Eben's family like helps run this police station. Like
he's got his brother and I think one of his aunts or something.
No, I think that's his grandma.
Oh, okay, yeah, his grandma. And then what little funny scene in there though is when I think the grandma that got in one of the desk drawers and had some pot marijuana in it, and it was ended up being the grandmother's.
Yeah, she's like, "It helps with my glaucoma or whatever."
Yeah. It's medically prescribed.
Like, yeah. Well, she's like, "I got a whole grow system in my house. Like, I grow it here, dude." And he's like, "Oh man, whatever."
Well, also while they're in this jail, things are radio, and things are coming in on the radio, and things are going on, kind of bad around. And this and the prisoner, the stranger, he starts kind of smiling and making these little comments like, "Yeah, I'm not going to be here long." I mean,
right. And then he's like,
"They're coming for me."
Right.
He's like, "They're coming for me." And then, the Eben's like, goes in there and tries to talk to him. Like, "What do you mean who's coming for you?" He's like, "You'll see." I mean, he's trying to be real coy about it, not give up too much information.
Well, I like the part where he's like, "Big man thinks a gun's gonna save him."
Yeah.
I like that. I love that part. So this is a really cool part, in my opinion, where we have two of the pipeline workers and the girl that's a pipeline worker. And
I got that down. I got that down as one of my key scenes too.
Oh man, that was in the trailer, Mike, if I remember right. And we were like, I was hooked after that. But these two guys are talking about going to the house, this girl's house, and like drinking with her and other adult activities with her. I mean, hey man, there's not many people there, so can't all have a girl
somehow.
Yeah, you all can't all have a girlfriend.
That's
you gotta
right.
share a girlfriend every now and then. But so all of a sudden they're like, rock, paper, scissors, who gets first shot? I don't know what the rock, paper, scissoring, Mike.
I think they're trying to see who gets to go home with her, and then that finally comes out, well, let's just both go home with her.
Oh, and then all of a sudden, this guy, did I write his name down? No, I did not write his name down. But all of a sudden, they're like, the guy just gets grabbed out of nowhere, Mike.
Yep.
Into this like shed, and he's like, Dale, or I don't know if the guy's name was Dale. And then all of a sudden, the guy's body just falls to the ground and his whole throat's ripped out.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, and then the girl runs. She's like, ah! And the other guy's like looking at his friend. And all of a sudden, they do a wide shot and you see these vampires just coming out. The guy stood no chance. I mean, he was done for, the friend. So, yeah. So the woman runs off, though. She ends up, getting away. And that was that scene was really good. It was really well done, in my opinion. And that's the thing I like about this movie, Mike. Like, if you look, like, in certain scenes, you can see, like, vampires around that you might not see.
That's what I like, too, is you see, like, if you stay focused on just what's happening in front of you, the peripheral and the back stuff, you see them throughout the whole movie, like they're crawling on top of the roofs, so they're jumping from one roof to another. Or there's something going on behind the scenes at all times.
I love that. I love that about the movie, Mike. I really do. So Eban is like, the cell tower's down. I'm going to go check it out. Go check on Gus. Well, he gets there and all like the satellites and stuff all ripped up, wasn't it?
Yep.
It's ripped up. And then he's like looking and he's like, Gus. And he pulls his gun. He has his gun out. And he like sees a trail of blood and he follows it. I love this too, Mike, where he follows the trail of blood and then he looks and there's a stick in the ground and he looks up and Gus's head's on a pike, dude.
Yep.
It's just, and he's like, oh. And then you see him driving through town and he has his lights on. He's like, get in your homes, load your firearms, get in your houses now.
Yep.
And he's like speeding through the town, telling all this. And then Eban goes back. Next is another really good scene, in my opinion, which was also in the trailer. The guy that got the dogs murdered, had his shotgun in front of him, and he was sitting in the house, and he was like, just like beside himself about these dogs. And his wife's like, "Are you gonna eat dinner tonight?" And he's like, "I don't know." And all of a sudden, dude, you hear a window break. Yes. And then she's like, ah! And it's that guy. It's that really weird looking vampire with a bald head. And he's got like a big jaw. And he takes her out the window. And the guy comes in with a gun. And he sees his wife being dragged out the window. And he jumps out he goes out the door or something. He goes around. And these vampires are like putting people up. Because all the houses there are like raised off the ground. I don't know why. I'm not sure why that is, but they are. And so like the vampires can move underneath the houses, and like he's like taking this woman and dragging her, and the husband tries to grab the wife, and all of a sudden the vampire slashes at his face and then slashes his leg, and he lets go of his wife or whatever. And then you don't know what happens after that. That's it on that scene. What did you think of that scene, Mike?
I love it because when he jumped through the window, the window, kind of like yellow. He jumped in and he kind of did a roll thing, like his kung fu type, superhero type thing. He rolled, grabbed her, and then kind of went right back out. It was a real quick move. He was already in and got the wife before, and back out. And then when she was underneath the house and he had her underneath the house, I think she was coming out and trying to scream and stuff, and then she would be dragged right back up underneath the house. I thought it was really cool.
Yeah, really well done, in my opinion. So, yeah, I have Eban goes back and tries to get info out of the stranger, and the guy's not giving nothing up. He's like, they're going to take me with them this time. That's what the stranger said. He's like, they're going to take me with them. They're going to make me one of them. Basically, that's what he says. And he wasn't giving anything up. So this is the thing, that Stella and Eban are like, we're going out. We got to check this stuff out. Why? This was a bad idea. They get in their truck. They floor it down the road, and they get to the edge of town. Isn't this part, Mike, where they get to the edge of town, they get out, and he's like, I think I see something. And she has like her binoculars, and she's like, get in the truck now.
Get in now.
And he's like, why? And she's like, gets in, floors it backwards. All of a sudden, this vampire jumps on there, and he's just hitting the crap out of this hood of this truck. And yeah, and they ended up getting him off of there. I think he shoots through the roof, but
yeah, he shoots through the roof, knocks him down, and then she goes forward and like runs over him and just keeps going.
Yeah, yep. So, and then next is they go back to the police station. The brother and the grandma are gone, and there's a bunch of blood in there, and he's like, oh God! So he goes over to the stranger, and the stranger's like, they didn't take me. And the guy's like, just wants to die. He's like, kill me now. Just kill me now. They didn't want me. And so that really
finish me off.
Right. Finish me off. Next is gotta be the sequence of the movie, Mike, in my opinion. And that's when they go over the town and they show close-up shots. Vampires are just totally massacring the town. And the people are trying to fight back. I mean, they're shooting them with their shotguns and handguns, and it don't matter. Like, they're still coming. Yep. And this scene is incredible, in my opinion, Mike. I love it. What do you think of it?
Yeah, I thought visually it was, whenever you watch the behind-the-scenes facts after this show, a couple of days later, we'll talk about it a little bit more. But the high... It's kind of like a drone looking shot, even though drones were not probably used during this. But when it's coming over real slow motion and you see guns being fired and vampires being blown up, but then people are having their throats and blood splattering here, and you see all this white snow and then just blood splatters everywhere. But it's a really, really cool scene. It's probably only 30 seconds long, maybe 40 seconds long, but you get so much out of that part. It's just like, you're saying, oh man, the vampires are just wiping this whole town out.
Yeah, and they are. And I wrote, the town is massacred. Awesome stuff. That's what I put. So I got next is Eban is with a small group of survivors. And their plan is to go to a guy's attic in a house. That's the guy left for the 30 days. So his house, and they said the attic blends in with the roof of the house, or the top, so like the vampires wouldn't be able to detect it. That's what they're thinking. So this small group of survivors is Stella, him, his brother. His brother did end up living. He didn't get away, but his brother did tell him the vampires jumped on grandma and totally freaking killed her. Right. So grandma's dead. And it's that girl that was going to be with those two oil dudes, but she got away. So she's there. You have the guy that was in the garbage plant, the guy with the garbage plant, that the Native American guy or the Eskimo guy. And then you have the helicopter dude and his dad, which don't make me talk about that. Yeah. I would have pushed that old guy outside and said, see you, dude. You ain't going to get me killed because you don't know what's going on. Listen, I'll go off about it later. And then you have no children, right? There's no children there. And then you have some other old lady, and then a guy that's a freaking jerk, like a jerk guy. And he sent earlier in the movie, you saw he sent his wife off and he stays back. And I can't remember if there's anybody else right now, but that's like kind of like the main group that's left, and they're surviving. They end up going up into this. They're like Stella and okay. I wrote this. Stella and Eban have a bad plan. They get in this car and floor it again. Like, are you kidding me? So Eban told that group of people, like, get these people to that attic and we will meet you there. We need to get like guns and bombs or dynamite or whatever, bear traps. I think he said he wanted to get to. And that one guy's there. I don't know. Has he made it here? That old trapper dude, the hermit, the town hermit, the guy that's he's like the hunter and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Has he made it? Was he a part of this group yet or no?
I can't remember if he was a part of that original group or not. He may have came in later.
Oh, nope. You're right. I actually have it written right here. So, So Stella and Eban go in their truck. All of a sudden, they're flooring it, and then these they have like 4 or 5 vampires just holding this truck. They can't move it because these things are strong, and they're just moving it. And all of a sudden, one jumps on the hood, I think, or something, and then they're pushing it over, dude. They're totally flipping it like this, aren't they, Mike?
Yep.
Flips it. Like, why would they do that? Like, why would they get in a car and think they could outrun these things? You can't. So they flip it, and they're getting attacked by these vampires, and they're like ripping them out of the car. And all of a sudden, this is when the hermit guy, the tracker, the trapper guy, comes in with his truck with a big plow on it, crashes 2 of the vampires up against the wall. I don't know if that killed him or not. But then he got Stella and Eban, which almost he had to like take his coat off or something to even get away from one of them. And they get in his truck and he drives off. But like, why wouldn't they chase it? Like some of that kind of is like, it's a movie. You got to give it some clearance. But why wouldn't they just chase after that snowplow truck after them? Right.
I don't know.
I know that's one thing that's kind of like a hole in the plot.
That might be towards the very end, towards the ratings that yeah.
There's a couple holes in the plot. Sure. I get that. But yeah, like I said, all seemed lost for a minute there for Stella and Eban, man. They were going to be toast if it wasn't for this guy to help him, the hermit guy. So they actually get back to the attic, 3 of them, and everybody's there that wanted that, and they're like, okay. He's like, Eban says, we have an advantage over these vampires. We have 2 advantages over these vampires. We know this town and we know the cold. They don't. So, like, we have that advantage over them. What do you think of that, Mike? Do you think that's an advantage?
As bad as those vampires were, no. But it was a good plan for them to kind of hang their hat on.
So they're all scared, and then 2 of the dudes end up getting into a freaking fight up in the attic. When any little noise these things could hear, are you dumb? That's what I wanted to say to these guys. Well, it was the brother who's only 15, but still, the other guy, he's the jerk. He's like, oh, I can get away, and who cares if some of these other people don't get away? As long as I get away, that's all that matters. That's basically what this guy said. Yeah. He's a real tough guy. But they said they're going to wait up there. They have enough food. They're going to wait up there to the next blizzard to move. And that's what they're planning. What do you think of that plan, Mike?
Yeah, not good. Not a good plan.
No. So they do have food up there. So the vampires actually use a girl as bait. Like they have a girl like walk down and she's like, help me, anybody help me, thinking it will draw people out. But if you look, like they were like, oh, we got to go help that girl. And Eban's like, no. Look, they can see out the window, like a little patch. He goes, look at the vampires on the roof up there. Like they're using this girl's bait. And they're like, what, are we just going to let her die? And they're like,
and they slaughter her.
Yeah. So that's one of the things I remember, Mike, that what he said was, she was like, oh, God, help me. And he was like, God? And then he looked up and he said, nope. And then that's when they freaking kill her. So, yeah, that was one of the parts that I remember, just because I think that scene is memorable because of, like, they use her as bait and then they just kill her. So,
yeah, they kind of slowly kill her, too. Like, they're hitting at her and, like, she's got, like, like nail marks, because all their nails and their teeth are nasty looking, and their nails are all, like, razor blades.
Oh, their nails are, like, their nails are, like, sharp knives on every finger.
Yep.
And their teeth are wicked, Mike.
And there's a couple of those vampires are really awesome looking. I mean, I saw, I think, where this film, along with Pirates of the Caribbean, or Caribbean, however you want to say it, and one other movie were the final 3 movies that year for best, costumes and best makeup.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, and also thinking about about the vampires, like it's not traditional vampires where it's only these 2 teeth that are long and sharp. Every single tooth is like a razor blade.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Eban, for whatever reason, he's outside. I don't know what came. Why did he go outside? I don't know the reason, but he's out. Everybody else is in the attic. I don't know what the reason for him going outside was. Did you know the reason? Do you remember
I
that
thought he
part,
went
Mark?
out to try to possibly, even though he told the rest of them not to come out, he was the one that went out to possibly try to save that girl, see what was going on. And
Oh,
he
you think
watched
that's
it.
what it was?
He watched it and then kind of just had to turn his head to it because he saw everybody, all the rest of them around.
Right. So while they're all the vampires are distracted killing this girl and feeding on her, he runs around back of another house, and all of a sudden he hears someone say "Eben," and he's like, "What? Like someone's out here alive?" And he looks underneath the house, and it's his friend, the guy that had the dogs, is still alive underneath the house.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, "Man, I'm gonna get you out of here, but we have to be quiet." He gets him up, and all of a sudden, the guy teeth are messed up, and his eyes are like black. His pupils are solid black, and he's like, "Whoa, what's wrong with you?" And he's like, "I'm so thirsty." And it's because he got scratched on the face and on the leg, but he changed very slowly. It wasn't like a quick. If you get bit in the neck, you change a lot faster than if you just get scratched. But you still do turn if you get scratched. So he ends up having to. This guy comes after him. His friend gets tangled. This is an awesome scene, Mike. His friend gets tangled up in a kid's like swing set, and Eben has to take an axe and just chop his freaking head off.
Yeah,
and he does,
cool.
and it's really cool effect. I love it. I think it was great. And then Eban's like, okay, well, that can kill them, chopping their head off. So he keeps the axe. And what do you got after that, Mike? After he chops his friend's head off?
Well, I may have, the notes I've got here, I may have jumped too far down, but at some point they walk into a house and they see a little girl in there.
Okay, well, the first happens is this guy that owned the helicopter and his dad had dementia or whatever. And he's like, "I'm going to Wainwright." "No, you're not, sucker." And he's like, okay. So he's like, "Oh, my dad. The dad's like, "Can I use the bathroom then?" So he goes out. The dad climbs out the flipping window, the guy with dementia. And then this other idiot's like, "It's my dad. I don't care." And he like throws Stella down because Stella tries to stop him. He goes outside like an idiot. And he's like, "Dad, Dad," like yelling. Like, why would you do that? They both get freaking killed, and they deserved it, in my opinion. They were idiots.
They deserved to die because of their stupidity.
Well, Mike, is that smart?
No.
In a strictly survival mode, in a survival situation, that is not smart, in my opinion. No. To go. I mean, I know you love your dad. But obviously your dad is very sick. He's not in his right mind. So, like, I don't know. Also, another thing the vampires said that you probably didn't get. The lead vampire, I think his name is Marlowe. He said, we do not want any. Oh, that's why. Because the vampires find the friend with his head cut off. And they see the head and they see that he turned. So they're like, oh, okay, we can't have this. So he told all the vampires, separate all the heads from the bodies. We cannot have anybody turn because they want to keep it into the group, I guess. I don't know. So the vampires start doing that. But yeah, so when they go back, Eben goes back after killing his friend. They decide to go to the convenience store to get supplies when the blizzard hits. And this blizzard is a whiteout. You can't see anything. Michelle goes, "Man, can't the vampires still see them?" I said, obviously the vampires are like in a house or something just hanging out because they don't want to be out in that blizzard. So they go out there and they go in there to get supplies. And like you said, what do they find, Mike?
They find a little girl. I mean, from originally you see her from the back side, but they go in, they see a little girl, and she's, number one, very creepy, but she's eating on somebody.
Yes.
Totally disgusting. One of the top 3 or 4 scenes I think in the whole movie is for creepiness and scariness was that right there.
What did she say, Mike? What does the vampire say to the other people that she sees?
Gosh, you make some little smart remark, and I'm like, so I'm bored. I'm bored with this or something. I can't remember.
She's like, "I'm done playing with them now. Do you want to play with me now?" Or something.
Yeah. She said. I remember she said something.
So they grab her up. She attacks this one guy, and and attacks the Eskimo guy, and she does not kill him. And they put him up, and all of a sudden, the brother of Eban just chops this little girl's head off, man.
Yeah, it was pretty brutal too.
Also, well, the people in the group are like, "Do you recognize this girl?"
Nope.
And everybody's like, "No, I don't." No one does. And if you notice, the girl has like a sleeveless dress on. I believe that this girl came in with these vampires. She is a vampire from this group, because you wouldn't be dressed like that. A dress and a sleeve, you know what I mean? You wouldn't be dressed like that in this town. You just wouldn't. And it was like a nice thing. And yeah, I believe that this girl was a vampire that came with these people.
Yeah, I do
too. So, like I said, they're moving to get supplies, so they do end up getting supplies. They get the little girl. So they're trying to figure out a plan. And their big plan that they came up with is to go get the grandma's grow light and try to see if it works. And I like it that one hermit guy's like, just because it worked on Bela Lugosi doesn't mean it's going to work on these guys. I thought that was funny. But so they're like, and they're trying to argue who's going to do it. But Eban says, I'm faster. I know, you know, I can get there, blah, blah. So he just starts running outside. And he's like, hey, everyone, like hitting like barrels with the axe. And I'm like, oh, God, like a grow light. Like there's like freaking 15 vampires at least. Right, Mike?
Yeah.
I mean, this is like a big group. And so he gets in there. He's got to start up a generator first, too. So he's there just pulling on this generator. We all know how some pull start stuff can be pretty hard to start sometimes, especially in the cold. So he does start that up. He gets in the house. He yanks down one of his grandma's grow lights, and he has it face down. He's ready. And Marlo and his like lead woman vampire come up, and the door, and that she barges like Marlo's like, yeah, go get him.
Yeah, he hides behind her skirt and goes, yeah, you go get him.
Yeah, and all of a sudden he lifts it up, man, and it scorches this girl, doesn't it?
Yeah,
it works. The artificial light works, and they're cutting. He goes, yeah. The people call him and they're like, did that work? And he goes, yeah, but they're gonna cut the power right after that. They do cut the power to the generator. So now he's like, oh crap! But he did that as a diversion to get these people out of the to a different location. Where do they end up heading to, Mike, after the store, the general store for supplies?
I thought didn't they start heading back towards where the other ones were at?
The attic? Oh,
yeah, they went back. Of course, the guy that was in the I've got on here now. I may have went too far forward, but I've got at this point they all start freaking out a little bit, and the dude with the bulldozer that drove the trencher he said, it's my time now. Yeah. He says my time. He puts some of these bear traps on the back of this thing. He puts, he's in the trencher. Dude, the trencher scene is awesome. I've got on here. He kills at least 5 or 6 vampires by himself. He takes off with the trencher / bulldozer and kicks ass. He kicked ass. Plus he had dynamite on him. Yeah, as well. And he shot one of the best parts of that was a vampire jumps on the front. He shoots it with a shotgun. It falls backwards on the trencher and just cuts it totally in half. Yeah. Yep. But then he's like, "Welcome to Barrow," and he like crashes into this thing. And he goes, you guys aren't going to feed on me. And then it doesn't work, though. It doesn't blow himself up. It just blows him out of the thing. And the other thing is that the lead vampire puts his foot on this guy's head. And I think he said something like, when man meets an object that he can't defeat, he tries to kill himself or something like that. He says something along those lines. So he just stomps this guy's head, man. Yep. Totally crack. They didn't feed on him at all. They just took him out. Yep. So yeah, the trencher is awesome. Now they send the other people, the brother and these other people, to that garbage disposal place or whatever. So they send them, but then Billy and Stella are like, "What's that light? There's someone flashing a light at them in a window."
And they're like, what is that? So they go over to this house, and it's Billy. His friend Billy is still alive. But Billy kind of has lost it, right, Mike?
Yeah.
What happened?
It's a sad scene.
What happened, Mike, there at Billy's house?
Well, Billy going to Billy, and he's kind of in the fetal position, kind of, crying and upset. And then look over at the bed, and the covers are pulled all the way up. And then, Eben's like, no, you didn't, kind of saying, no, surely you didn't. And then he's like, well, I couldn't let him, I couldn't let him get him. And he's like, you never do that. And then finally Stella pulls back the covers, and he's killed the family. He
shot he had like his wife and I think 3 or 4 daughters.
Yep.
He shot them all in the head.
Yep. He said, I wasn't going to let him turn them, or I wasn't going to let him eat them.
Well, and then he said, I tried to shoot myself, but the gun.
He said, I screwed that up too. I messed that up.
Right. So, yeah. But Billy is hurt or injured because they have to help him to this garbage disposal.
You remember his leg, one of the scenes, he messed his ankle up really bad. I think it kind of broke it or something. It was all messed up.
Oh, okay. And so, but listen, I said, Billy, Stella and Eban find a little girl alive, just walking down the road. So they grab her, and the vampires see him, and they get separated from Billy, but Billy knows where to go. And Eban and Stella and this little girl are stuck out here. Eban goes back to the garbage place, and he's like, is they here? Are they here? Is Stella and this girl here? And they're like, no, Stella's not here. Well, Billy being Billy, freaking a vampire fire follows Billy to this garbage place. Billy gets inside of it, and this vampire jumps on him, totally bites him in the neck, and Eban gets in a fight with this vampire, and then the other people in there, the women and stuff, try to fight this guy, and they try to fight this guy, but the vampire ends up going in that grinder thing that killed Michael Myers. And it was a pretty cool scene. It was a lot better looking than that one, in my opinion.
It looks a lot better than Michael Myers' Halloween Ends.
Yeah. So it tore him up. And by that time, though, his friend was already turning. So he had to chop Billy's head off. And man, that was a cool effect, Mike.
Yeah, it was.
Didn't you think?
Yeah. If he cut it and chopped it, and it got like 3/4 way off, and then he went ahead and took another.
Yeah, it was just hanging, like his head was hanging on by this skin right here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the next is Eban goes, he's looking, and Stella and the little girl are underneath this car in town. Well, the vampires are like, okay, like why didn't we come to this town sooner? We're going to come back at some point. But there's a pipeline right there. So they break that open and let all the oil leak into the town. They're going to set it ablaze so no one knows what happened there. And it is a good plan, in my opinion. Like the pipeline exploded, and then the whole town burnt down, and everybody's dead.
Yep.
So they're under there, and he's like, "Man, what can I do?" Eban's like, "What can I do?" And he was thinking back to when his wife said, "Do you think that we ever cared about each other enough to risk our lives for each other?" Because she said something like that to him in the movie.
Yeah.
So he thought of that, and he said, "Okay, to hell with it." Takes a syringe, sticks it in Billy's blood, puts it into his vein, and he's turning. And then all of a sudden, one of the cool lines I thought, Mike, was he looks at him and his eyes are all dilated and black, and he's like, "I can smell your blood." And I was like, oh, man. So he goes out there, and he faces off with Marlo. He's like, I'm going to try to take the leader out, and maybe that'll kind of – and this is the last day of darkness as well.
Yeah,
it's not, this is this happens on the last day. These people have survived. Well, some have survived this 30 days. And he goes out there and he's fighting Marlo, and the woman and the little girl get out of there, and he's fighting Marlo, and Marlo's saying something to him. And all of a sudden he's getting his butt kicked by Marlo.
Yeah.
But if you remember right, like the vampire's nails, like I said, are like, so like Marlo leaps at him, and he's just like, boom, right through his mouth and through the back of his head.
Yep.
It was pretty cool, Mike. Did you like that?
That was a really cool kill scene at the very end, because it was all hand-to-hand combat, and it just was out of nowhere because he's getting his ass kicked so bad. And then
Yep.
then he did that one killer move, man. It just like split him in half.
Yep. And then the rest of the vampires kind of scatter off, and they don't have a leader now. And they're like, should we go for the rest of them? And they're like, no, whatever. And so the movie ends with him and Stella up watching the sunrise. And he's like, we're going to watch this together one last time. And it's a pretty powerful moment, in my opinion. And he's there, and he's like trying to hold her, or she's holding him. And all of a sudden the sun's coming up, and you can just see his skin starting to turn black. Yeah. And I love it why he's sitting there and he dies, and you just see his ashes just start kind of like going in the wind and blowing in the wind and stuff. And she's holding on to him. She's crying. And but she knew that he did that to save her life because he loved her.
Yep.
So maybe she wasn't sure that this beginning of the movie, she wasn't sure that he loved her. You know what I mean? I mean, obviously. And this showed her that he really did, in my opinion. So what else did you think of that ending, Mike?
I thought it was a good ending because, it wasn't a typical kumbaya. Everything was nice and they go off and live in the sunset together. It was very heroic of himself to shoot himself up with the bad blood and turn into a vampire and do that. I thought it was a definitely a different ending.
Yeah.
I thought it was very it was very fitting to end the movie this way. It kind of made the Evan character, his character even stronger and more had more integrity to it.
Yeah, I really like Josh Hartnett's performance here. I thought it was really good. Overall, I think the cast was really good.
It was definitely an A. It wasn't a C class acting or anything. The whole film had a big time Hollywood feel to it.
Yep. So let's give this let's say, how many heads on a stick are you going to give this one, Mike?
So, I know Josh really likes this movie.
Yes.
And it was the first time I'd seen it. I'd actually seen it one other time before, but it evidently didn't stick with me that, hey, I'd seen this movie before until now. I thought it had some really cool kill scenes. It made the vampires look really cool. My problem with the movie overall was I thought the storyline was a little weak. I thought they could have done so much more, in my opinion, behind the scenes to put a better story behind the vampires, which I think there was a couple more movies that came out after this. One was a prequel and one was a sequel, but maybe put a little more behind that. And then, like, even you and I talking during this, we talked about some of the stupidity that that they wrote in for the cast to do, that just like, why the hell would you run out there and scream? Why would you? So, I mean, there was just a lot of that to it, in my opinion, too. So, yeah, I'm going to say 3 is average, and I would give this probably a 3 to 3.25. There's some parts of it I thought I would have gave it a 4.5 to 5 on. The vampire characters themselves, I think, are really cool. I like the way they did the vampires. The kill scenes are really cool. The storyline just is a little bit weak, in my opinion. So I'll give it a 3 to 3.25. It's definitely average, maybe a tad above average.
I'm giving it a 4.3 stars.
Wow, 4.3.
Oh, I love this. I saw this movie in 2007 in the theater, and I've loved it ever since then. I think it. I mean, I have a couple of different vampire movies I really love, but for me, this did the vampire in a way that I haven't seen much, where they're just vicious and they're just for killing. They're not trying to romanticize. They're not trying to do this or that. It's like they're for one thing, to kill and feed, and that's it. And I like that. I like that they did that. So, yeah, I really like this. I say 4.3 star heads on a stick, Mike.
Wow, that's pretty high, Josh. So, hey, what do y'all think? Have y'all seen it? 30 Days of Night. What's your opinion of it? Do you think it's more like what I said, a 3 or 3.3, 3.25, or is it up there with Josh with 4.3? I do think Rotten Tomatoes, it didn't score very good. I think it scored like around a 50 something, right, Josh? Maybe a 60.
So Rotten Tomatoes critic is 51 and audience is 56, and that's criminal, in my opinion. I mean, that's criminal.
I do think it's better than those scores. Again, you really like it, so I don't want to take away from that. I just thought the whole storyline could just be a little bit more.
I mean, I can see some of the plot holes, and that's why I didn't give it a 5, Mike.
All right, so tell us what you think. This is Mike.
Comment, and Josh. It's 30 Days of Josh, and it's comment, subscribe, guys, and comment below.
All right, bye.
Bye, guys.